This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Lunch Show on Teachers Talk Radio with Graham Stanley. Today I will be looking at what a portfolio career looks like if you're a teacher and how teachers can start building one with my special guest, Emily Bryson.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
So welcome to the Sunday Lunch Show, everyone. As I mentioned, the topic of today's show is portfolio careers. And I'll be exploring how my special guest, Emily Bryson, ended up building hers. Hopefully, if you're a teacher who is thinking about adding strings to your bow and want to know how you can do so, there'll be lots of ideas for you on today's show. What exactly is a portfolio career? Well, a portfolio career is a way of working where an individual has multiple sources of income from different types of work rather than holding a single full-time job. This can include a mixture of freelance work, part-time jobs, consulting, creative pursuits, teaching, or even running a small business. Now, what are the key features of a portfolio career? Well, you may be a part-time teacher, a writer, a teacher trainer, a freelance graphic designer, or anything really all at once. So you are looking at doing a range of different diverse roles, perhaps. There are aspects that include flexibility. So a portfolio career allows for greater control over your schedule and the type of work that you do. There are usually a variety of skills. You can apply different talents that you may have, different interests that you have across industries or projects. And then, of course, there are income streams, a variety of income streams. So rather than relying on one employer, you can generate income from several clients or gigs. This approach is increasingly popular, especially in what is known as the gig economy, especially among creatives, professionals seeking work-life balance, or those transitioning careers. Increasingly, it is becoming attractive to teachers, especially those who work in certain aspects of education, so areas of education. So, for example, English language teaching overseas is one which my special guest is part of. It's not so much a new thing, of course. I remember when I started work as an English teacher in Barcelona, the only work available was part-time. So I started working for multiple language academies back in the day, teaching all sorts of different age groups and levels. And this I ended up complementing with private tutoring, exam invigilation, and facilitating oral exams for learners. I then worked as a coordinator in schools, and other teachers I knew wrote items for exams or started becoming involved in materials writing and teacher training to supplement their income. Some teachers also pursued, of course, music or acting. And as we know, English language teaching abroad is a way of being able to combine teaching with trying to work as an actor in music or all sorts of other things. So this has always existed, especially for English language teachers, but it has recently become more attractive or more popular, I think. What has changed is the proliferation of opportunities to work online these days, which is what my guest, Emily Bryson, has done. She's combined the many different pieces and aspects of her work that she does with traveling extensively through Latin America over the last year. And I've been keeping up with her as she does so, and very envious of some of the places that she's been to. I can't wait to hear about her travels, as well as finding out how she's managed to balance this traveling with the work that she has been doing. So, about my special guest. Emily Bryson is an English language teacher with over 20 years' experience in the classroom. She's written various print and digital materials, including National Geographic's Learning Voices and Impact series, 50 Ways to Teach Life Skills and Pathways to Success, visual tools for goal setting, self-evaluation and progression. She's passionate about diversity, equity and inclusion, and the use of visual tools and graphic facilitation strategies to make learning more engaging, accessible and fun. And in fact, this is the second time that Emily has been on my show. The first time she talked about this idea of graphic facilitation. Emily is a resident blogger for Ellie Learning and frequently delivers teacher development sessions for a variety of English language teaching organizations. Her training courses with a visual twist have been described as the nicest corner of the internet, and her sketch notes are extremely popular on socials. You can find out more about her at emilybrysonelt.com and follow her on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or via LinkedIn. And I'll be talking to Emily about portfolio careers after the Teachers Talk radio news.
Need a smarter way to teach? Wish your lessons had more impact? Eduflix.com. Stream educational films for teachers and students in or out of the classroom. Keep students engaged. No ads. No distractions. Try it free for 30 days at eduflix.com/try. Use code TTR. Get 50% off all orders made before June 1st. Eduflix.com.
Hi secondary school teachers, we're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculums. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org.
Did you know that every year, half of disadvantaged children who are top attainers at primary school don't go on to achieve top GCSE maths results? At Axiom Maths, we exist to change that. Our fully funded program helps schools nurture young mathematicians through weekly face-to-face maths circles, where pupils tackle challenging and exciting problems outside the national curriculum. With just under £3,000 annual funding, expert training and quality resources, we give schools everything they need to inspire the next generation of mathematical thinkers. Want to make a difference? Visit axiommaths.com today and join over 400 schools delivering math circles across the UK.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
Schools Week focuses on calls from the charity Youth Endowment Fund to give every school a Violence Against Women and Girls lead. The article, which can be found on the Schools Week website, also features the results of a poll which suggests 1 in 8 teachers have reported sexual assaults between pupils. The survey by TeacherTap on behalf of the charity found that 13% reported a child sexually assaulting another child in the past term. 45% of secondary teachers said they lacked confidence in teaching how to intervene if pupils witness a sexual assault. 55% of the same group also cited a lack of confidence or expertise as the main barrier to delivering PSHE and relationship, sex and health education. The Labour government has pledged to halve violence against women and girls within a decade, but the Youth Endowment Foundation said this required clear, targeted action. This should also include a £1 million investment to pilot a Violence Against Women and Girls Lead training grant across 50 schools, colleges and alternative provision settings. £35 million, the charity says, should then be spent to scale up the initiative if it shows success. £100 million should be spent over 5 years to deliver evidence-based violence reduction programmes for children most at risk. The charity further said pupil premium spending guidance should be updated to explicitly encourage schools to invest in evidence-based violence reduction strategies. John Yates, the CEO of the YEF, said, over the past decade, schools have led the charge in breaking down the stigma around mental health, and that with the right resources, training and leadership, they would have similar transformative impact. Full details of his comments and more results from the Teacher Tap survey are on the Schools Week website. In related news, BBC Scotland news site focuses on calls by unions for primary school pupils to be educated in the dangers of hate speech from online influencers. At its annual conference in Glasgow, NASUWT President David Anderson said racism and misogyny is a growing concern in schools, and more needs to be done to tackle it. The union calls for early education because by secondary school, many pupils have already been exposed to far-right narratives. It says parents assume extremist influences are only affecting secondary pupils, but in reality, this is not the case. In 2023, Police Scotland launched a new strategy to tackle abuse with a section on dealing with incels, those who are involuntary celibate, defining incel culture as an ideology where women are to blame for the lack of intimate relationships. Mr. Anderson said in his speech, "We see the changes in broader society in the classroom conduct of pupils, and that abusive rhetoric by politicians is also trickling down." The Scottish Government said schools should be safe for all pupils and staff. The plan by Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson to recruit the extra teachers has been funded by adding VAT to private school fees and is one of the cornerstones of education policy. However, a report by the National Audit Office warned that a projected increase in secondary school pupil numbers was likely to outpace recruitment and leave teacher vacancies unfilled. Further education colleges, already badly affected by recruitment and retention crises, will need up to 12,400 more teachers by 2028. The number of newly qualified teachers who started in state secondary schools in 2023 fell to 8,700, the lowest number since 2010, and the Department for Education has missed its recruitment target for secondary training in all but one of the past 10 years. The National Audit Office called on the government to publish a delivery plan outlining how it intends to recruit the additional teachers within the timeframe and urged ministers to assess the extent to which the further education workforce model is fit for purpose. Responding to the NAO report, Ms Phillipson reiterated the government's commitment, saying, "We're already seeing green shoots with 2,000 more secondary school teachers training this year. But there is still more to do." Finally, BBC Business News covers the difficulties faced by young graduates in getting a job, with some frustrated at being turned down for roles at supermarkets. The British Retail Consortium told the BBC young people would be hardest hit by the falling jobs market, as UK vacancies are at their lowest level in 4 years. One graduate with a degree in accounting and finance and a master's in management said she had gone through Aldi's recruitment process only to be told there was no suitable vacancy. Since January 2024, she said she had applied for around 2,000 roles. Another told the BBC, "I finished my degree and can't find one job within the field I studied for." And a third said, "Young people aren't fussy, we literally can't even get hired cleaning toilets." In February, data showed that more 16 to 24-year-olds were not in work, education or training at the end of 2024 than at any point in the past 11 years. A government spokesperson said its new youth guarantee was providing every 18 to 21-year-old in England with access to an apprenticeship, quality training and education opportunities. The article on the website also lists 6 top tips for finding work. These can be found on BBC Business News. This has been Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm here with Emily Bryson. How are you, Emily?
Hello, how are you?
I'm well.
Thank you so much for having me on
Thanks
again.
to come back
That's the
again.
third time now, is it?
Emily, where in the world are you at the moment?
I'm in Glasgow at the moment, so I'm actually in my home city. So we're back for summer is the plan, and then hoping to escape in time for winter and start traveling again.
I ask because I know you've been on quite a trip the last year, is it?
Yeah, sort of. Well, it was a year and 4 months of traveling around Latin America whilst working remotely, and it was amazing. Loved every second of it.
Could you say briefly where you've been and what the highlights have been for you?
So we were in Chile, which we loved for the mountains and just how remote it was. And then Argentina, where we loved more mountains. I fell in love with Bariloche. I think I could live there forever and ever.
Yeah.
And then lots of wine, obviously. Peru, great food. And then all the hiking and then rainforest in Peru as well. And then I got to visit the Boiling River with National Geographic Explorer, thanks to writing for National Geographic Learning, which was great. And then we went up to Panama. No, we went to Colombia, to the coast, and we met some friends there, and that was really good fun. And then we were in Panama for we tried to go about 3 months in each country. And then from Panama, we went to Costa Rica, and we met Marek Kowiak, if you know him, there, which was lovely. He's one of the other Voices authors. And then we went to Nicaragua for a while, and then we flew back here. So it was a bit of an epic adventure, but loved every second of it.
Fantastic. And what are you planning to do next? Where are you planning to go?
I don't know. We're thinking maybe back to Chile and Argentina. But my cousin just came over recently with his 4 kids that I've not seen for about 7 years. And now we're maybe thinking about going to Australia instead. Anywhere that it's not cold and dark and rainy, like Scotland is over winter. So that's our plan.
Right. So related to our theme today, I would love to hear how you've managed to carry on working while you're traveling. That would be great.
Yeah. So now I found myself randomly with a remote job. I don't think it was ever really my intention to start out that way. I started teaching English because I wanted to travel. So my first teaching role was in South Korea. No, it wasn't. It was in Poland, and then South Korea. And then I was teaching at City of Glasgow College for about 2 decades. And during that time, I was writing for digital materials and print materials and authoring books. And then slowly that morphed into teacher training as well. And then I got into sketchnoting, which is also known as visual recording. And I started doing that too. And before I knew it, I had all these income streams. And then the college were offering voluntary severance at the time. So they were offering packages. And I thought, I don't know if I really want to leave because I love my students. I was teaching learners from refugee backgrounds. They had really interesting stories. They were wonderful humans. They would bring me food. And I was basically getting paid to chat to really interesting people, which was lovely. And then obviously my colleagues were amazing. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to leave the college. But in the end, I realised that I had so many different income streams that it would be silly to not take the opportunity to go travelling. So my husband and I packed all our stuff into 2 little bags and went off travelling for 1.5 years. And yeah, so that's, oh yeah, I've got blogging as well. I blog for Ellie, so for Ellie Learning.
So
yeah,
how do you manage? It's quite a lot of things, it sounds like, to juggle at the same time. How do you manage to keep everything going and have time to travel and enjoy the places that you're actually visiting?
Well, I guess a lot of them are quite, like, for example, blogging. It's maybe like a morning a week, or morning a month, really, or like a few hours a month. It's not a huge amount. Like a lot of the projects are quite small. Like sketchnoting will maybe be like 1 day, 2 days. And then there's usually bigger projects, like a writing project taking place in the background. It all depends on, just having my, I don't know where I would be without my Microsoft Diary. Definitely need that, and that can get really complicated, different time zones, especially when you change time zone and then it all changes. Like, for example, I've had things scheduled in my diary for 1 o'clock. Yes, my webinar that I was doing for Natecla yesterday, that was scheduled in my diary for 12, but because I'd programmed it when I was in Costa Rica or Nicaragua, it said 8 o'clock in the morning. So I had to like trawl through old emails to double check what time it actually is. So that can be a bit of a challenge. But yeah, I guess just knowing what I can and can't take on and having a good idea of how long things are going to take me. Doing little trial runs and figuring out how long things will take me, for example. Like I'm working on a sample unit for a book at the moment, which will give me an idea of how long this book's going to take to write and whether I've actually got enough time to be able to do it realistically.
So it sounds like it's a good idea to kind of plan small regular things that are going to, keep going for the long term and have give you some kind of income stream. And then other sort of bigger projects that might be more intensive, but make sure they don't sort of coincide with other bigger projects.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, it would be great if I had like lots and lots of so much teacher training or so many sketchnoting gigs. But I think realistically, having a few allows me to do other things. But I would like to do more of that.
Have you been able to do any teaching while you've been traveling as well? Or is that something you've just sort of decided you needed to put to the back?
I actually did. So I went to Peru, Tisol in Arequipa because you told me it was there. So I loitered in Arequipa for a few more weeks just so that I could attend Peru, Tisol. And actually it was one of the best things that I did because I ended up meeting some amazing teachers from Peru there. And there was a few in Lima that I got really quite close to. One of them invited me for dinner at her house, and then another showed me certain bits of the city, but she also invited me into her classroom twice. So that was really lovely. I got to go and meet her students and chat to them. And actually we did a lesson about the boiling river. I can't remember what the other lesson was. I think we just kind of did a bit of like graphic facilitation and maybe transport vocabulary, drawing transport vocabulary and stuff like that. And yeah, we made some posters about the boiling river on the other class. It was really nice to be able to just go in and do that.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And what would your ideal be if you could choose a balance of graphic facilitation, teacher training, course writing, etc.? Would you have a kind of like, well, I'd have one project that would go on for a year and regular, what would the ideal be?
Oh man, I'm not sure. I think I like the diversity of my job. I think I get, like when I was teaching and only teaching, I got quite bored. I think I'm quite a person that gets bored easily. I think I've got quite a low attention span. I think I need lots of things going on to keep me entertained and interested. So I think a good mix of all. I'd love to be doing more sketchnoting and visual recording, bringing conferences to life, and giving webinars eternal life, etc. I'd love to be doing more of that, and more teacher training and public speaking gigs. But also it's nice to have a book in the background as a base to know that your financial safety net is definitely there. So yeah, it's nice to have all of them, really.
Of course.
Yeah.
And what about for teachers out there who are listening in who think, oh, I'd quite like to do that? How do you get started? It sounds like something that just sort of grew organically for you as you started exploring other things you could do outside or around teaching, and then suddenly they were kind of enough to do on their own. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. And actually, I think if it wasn't for voluntary severance being on offer at the college, I think I would probably still be there, just from the safety net and the comfort zone of it, really. So, but having those years of working toward, of trying different things, like it wasn't just those things that I tried. Like I went on secondment at the Scottish Refugee Council for a year, and then was on secondment at Education Scotland for a year, which is basically the governmental educational body in Scotland. And I was dealing with the ESOL content there, and bringing different teachers together, that kind of thing, organising policies and things like that. So I've always been looking for other opportunities. So I think I would say to teachers, if they're looking to expand, just look for those open doors, look for those opportunities, and just apply for them. Like, you're definitely not going to get it if you don't apply. So put the application in, even if you think you might not get it. And maybe, or if you're inspired by a particular job that you see and you think, I don't have those skills right now, but maybe you can start working towards them. I think also doing things like, for example, building up your online presence, because I think people see you online and they see what your skills are, and then they come to find you. So that can be very helpful as well. But also it can, I don't know, I think when people see that you've got that online presence, you can maybe be more attractive, because you can, like, for example, when I share my sketch notes, sometimes they get shared a lot, and that's because I've built up an online presence. But if I only had like 2 followers, then they're not going to be shared particularly meant by they'll be shared maybe 2 people, because one of the followers is my mum, you know. So.
But a lot of the teachers listening, I think, would be saying, that's all very well saying build up your online presence, but what does it actually mean? Where do you start? If a teacher hasn't really done much more than just connecting to friends and colleagues on Facebook or LinkedIn, what do they need to do that building up of presence, and to kind of catch the attention of someone who may well be interested in offering them some work out of it?
Yeah, well, I would say actually first question whether you want to build up that online presence, because it can be all consuming. And even just when you post and then lots of people comment and you've got to respond to those comments, and if you're doing that on multiple platforms, that can take a lot of time. So maybe focus on one platform. I think LinkedIn's probably the best professionally, really, because I feel like that's where people are talking about professional things, whereas on Instagram you're competing with dog videos and really satisfying videos of people's cakes, etc., where people traveling, and then your posts about English grammar maybe aren't getting quite the interest. But yeah, start out, maybe choose a platform that you would like to be visible on, and then just introduce yourself, take some pictures, share a blog post. I started out sharing blog posts, and that was a nice safe space because it showed my skills, it showed what I knew. I could research those blog posts, I could review them, and then once I'd finished, I could post them. And then it didn't involve showing my face or anything. And then there's lots of people that like share other people's content. So like just obviously citing them, make sure you cite them for sure. but like reposting other people's posts, that can be just as equally valid, being there, commenting, etc. But actually, I know quite a lot of people that don't have an online presence are equally successful. Like, for example, one of my co-authors in Voices doesn't have an online presence at all, and yet has written, I don't know how many books, loads and loads and loads of books. And they basically just get in touch with editors, previous editors, commissioning editors, people that they already know. They've developed a rapport with them over time. So all they need to do is go and tap on that person's door and say, "Oh, do you have any writing work for me?" So make use of the contacts, direct message them. Don't spam people, but just send them a little message to say, "Hi, how are you?"
But I think in that case, it definitely needs, you need already to have done the networking and to have contacts, don't you? So it's that
There is that
crucial thing. I don't know about you, but one thing that happened to me and how I got there's sort of several reasons why I got into writing the books that I wrote. One of them was finding a niche, which I think you've done, developing a kind of an expertise. And I started, because I was just passionate in doing that, I started teacher training by doing insets for colleagues at the school where I worked, then local conferences, and then then national conferences, and then international conferences, and developing a kind of reputation, if you like, for talking about things that I thought at the time not that many people were talking about, technology and language learning, which was a passion of mine. So that's the way I kind of started moving. And then, because you have people like publishers, etc., go to these conferences, they're always kind of got their eye out for people with expertise that maybe fit what their projects that they're doing. And so I started getting contacted by people that way. Would you think that's a good thing to do if someone wanted to kind of try to move into writing? Or
yeah, definitely, especially if it's a passion. If you're not passionate about it, don't get yourself into the niche of AI or accessible learning or whatever if you're not utterly passionate about it.
It has to be that, doesn't it? It has to be something that you're willing to spend a lot of time on, because there's so many hours where you don't know if it's going to. I think it has to be something that you would do anyway, not you don't do it just because you want to try and get the attention to try and get into book writing or whatever.
Yeah. And I think there is in some ways there's a kind of danger of niching. Like, I've definitely niched into she's the girl who doodles, or she's the person that takes those notes, those sketch notes. And she's the person that creates those really snazzy graphic organizers or visual templates, etc. Or those little hand-drawn stories. But I think there can be a bit of a danger in that, in a way, because maybe people don't see me for being, she knows about AI, when in actual fact I do know about AI, and I know about grammar too, and I know about vocabulary too, and all those other kind of.
But one thing I think you've done, Emily, which is very good, is that you kind of carved out that niche for yourself. There doesn't seem to be many, if any, more people who are doing the kind of things that you're doing, or at least I'm not aware of them. Whereas one of the problems with AI now is that everybody seems to have an opinion and ideas. AI. So as someone who's interested in technology, I'm looking at AI and thinking, well, what can I offer that everyone else isn't already offering? Because it's such a sort of level playing field, and a lot of it depends on just becoming immersed with it and looking at it, which I am. But it doesn't seem like there's that much new that you can offer in that space.
Yeah, in terms of AI, or?
Well, just because everybody's, so many people are there already, looking, fighting for attention. That
it's true.
There are sort of people who have been able to understand what people need and offer them in ways that are things that aren't being offered by others. But it's very difficult. What I'm saying is that if you're new to this and are trying for something that would make you stand out, AI may not be the place to start.
Yeah, I think it would be something that you've done a lot of, something you know well. Like, for example, the natural place for me to have, I sometimes kick myself for not doing this, because for many years, my passion was ESOL literacy and creating materials for literacy learners, because there's actually, like, they often say that ESOL is the Cinderella of ESOL resources. Like, there's so many ESOL resources, mostly EFL resources, so they're for use in any classroom, but not local classrooms of learners who are learning, for example, in Glasgow, maybe who want to, I don't know, rent a flat or whatever, or get a bank account. Those kind of resources, there's not many of those. And then there's even less if you look at ESOL literacy resources, like, for example, phonics resources. And I actually have hard drives full of those, and they're half finished. They're messy. They're good enough for me to use in my classroom, but I would need to tidy them up and make teachers' notes for them. And I guess, yeah, I don't know. I sometimes feel like that would probably have been my niche, but then I found graphic facilitation because I guess it was different. I've been to so many training courses about grammar and training courses about classroom management and all the usual kind of English language teaching topics, life skills, etc. And I wanted something new and fresh. And so when I encountered creating visual templates and using visual metaphors, etc. in the classroom, that was like, oh, magic, this is amazing. I was like, oh, this is new and fresh and interesting and truly innovative. So yeah, that's what hooked me there and got the passion there.
And that's the other thing as well, what you're saying about having hard drives full of materials, etc.
Yeah.
If a teacher can link what they want to share with others, for example, to things that they've already been working on that they're using in class, that was the case for me with my first sort of break, if you like, with a book came because I was passionate. Me and a colleague that I work with were passionate about using video games with teenagers and preteens, and we'd already taken, lots of classes and tried out activities and talked about it to each other, and we were, really enthusiastic about it, as well as the fact that we didn't know of anybody else who was doing any of that.
Nice.
And so we kind of developed all these ideas and how we had our aha moments of why they were working, and starting to explore other ways of doing it. And that's what that led us to. Okay, should we write a book about this? Because if we don't, someone else is going to do it.
Yeah.
And so we saw a kind of gap that we discovered through the actual teaching, and we found something that people at that time didn't really know, people weren't really doing. And so then we decided, right, this is a niche book. Who can we pitch it to, and who do we know? And that's how we got our in, basically.
Nice. What was the title of that book?
Digital Play. So that was back in 2011.
Oh, wow.
Now the book is kind of redundant because it was based on Flash games, and Flash doesn't exist anymore.
Wow.
I'm kind of thinking it needs an update, really, but it's sort of undertaking to try and do that. But at some point, I think I would like to revisit this.
Yeah.
It's still an area that isn't really very hasn't been explored very, very much. There's a lot of academic articles about things like very specifics of online gaming, or and then there's a whole sort of raft of people who are doing kind of serious games and stuff, but a lot of it is in academia. It's not really, there's not a lot more teachers to practically use in the classroom.
Okay.
Which is where my interest lies.
Okay.
Not in the research of, let's look at the use of idioms in World of Warcraft.
Yeah, okay.
That doesn't really interest me.
More like activities to do with the World of Warcraft.
It's basically how you can, with that research in mind, is there a way that you can actually take that and give somebody who's actually teaching something that will work with their students?
Yeah.
Always been interested in that aspect of things.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like applying academia to the classroom practice.
Yeah.
There's always got to be that kind of bridge, isn't there? And I think that's what a lot of teacher trainers seek to do is.
Yeah, I think if you're passionate about teaching and learning, rather than the kind of, the linguistics aspect of things, the examining aspects of language and trying to discover that area. I think if you I've always respected and have been interested in researchers, for example, who are interested in the application of language teaching and learning to the classroom, and the kind of action research kind of activities.
Yeah. Nice. And that can actually be another string on a portfolio career. For example, I was a mentor for an action research project a couple of years ago for the OTLA. So yeah, I had three mentees all doing different action research projects. I was just kind of keeping them on the right track and being a sounding board for them. And it was really fascinating, the research that they came out with. So
yeah. So what about other things, and how do teachers find the opportunities apart from what we've already talked about? Build a presence, get known, start teacher training, do it locally, do it at conferences, find something that you're good at that maybe where not that many people are doing.
Need a smarter way to teach? Wish your lessons had more impact? Eduflix.com. Stream educational films for teachers and students in or out of the classroom. Keep students engaged. No ads, no distractions. Try it free for 30 days at eduflix.com/try. Use code TTR. Get 50% off all orders made before June 1st. Eduflix.com.
Hi secondary school teachers, we're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculums. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org.
Did you know that every year, half of disadvantaged children who are top attainers at primary school don't go on to achieve top GCSE maths results? At Axiom Maths, we exist to change that. Our fully funded program helps schools nurture young mathematicians through weekly face-to-face maths circles, where pupils tackle challenging and exciting problems outside the national curriculum. With just under £3,000 annual funding, expert training and quality resources, we give schools everything they need to inspire the next generation of mathematical thinkers. Want to make a difference? Visit axiommaths.com today and join over 400 schools delivering maths circles across the UK.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order.
What are the things you think teachers can do to kind of start building that portfolio career?
Yeah. Well, there's so many different angles that you can take. So another thing that you could do is set up, feel like quite a lot of people are setting up their own courses now. So there's quite a lot of like online platforms where you can set up your own courses, create
Have you
your own.
done that? Or is it something? Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I've tried it all. And then like downloads as well, downloadable resource packs for like teachers to pay teachers, and on my website. But the thing is, the creating the course is the easy part, because I think as educators, we know how to prepare content, we know how to lay out content on courses, but then the issue is when it comes to marketing it. Like I've got 6 courses now, and marketing them is like another full-time job. And a lot of the time it just kind of, I have this habit of creating a new resource pack and then not telling anybody about it. I think it was 6 months before I actually told anybody that I had a teachers pay teachers page. And I think that maybe stems from having the portfolio of, oh, you're writing books today and you're doing sketch notes another day, and then, oh, now you're blogging. And then when are you going to get time to write that marketing email? So, or when are you going to get time to revamp your website so that your sales copy actually sells? So I did some work with Jennifer Murray recently on revamping my website, because I've got so many different hats. My website was just a mess, and it was really hard to navigate, because when you've got a landing page that says you're a materials writer and you're hire me for training or hire me for sketchnoting, then it gets really confusing. And then if people are going there specifically to get to your course, then are they looking at the course page, or are they looking at the page where, for publishers that you've written about your writing? So it can all get a bit confusing. And that's something that you need to, if anybody wants to create their own courses or even write their own books, marketing them as well. Like I've got books like the 50 Ways to Teach Life Skills at IATEFL. There was a copy at the publisher's stand, Ways Goose Press. So Dorothy Zumack, who's my publisher, filmed me talking about it. I posted it on LinkedIn, and lots of people were like, oh, congratulations. I was like, yeah, that's from 2018 or 2019. I just made the video. The book was published years ago, and it's still relevant. It's about life skills. It's not it's all the activities in it are still relevant, but like you forget that you made this product 5 or 6 years ago, and then it kind of gets forgotten about. So you need to, once you've made these, then they need to be added to your social media strategy, your email marketing strategy. Or they just get forgotten.
Do you sit down and work out that strategy? Is that something or is it more kind of organic?
I do and I don't. I could be a lot better at it. I know the theory behind the strategy. The reality is there's a knowing doing gap, especially for me. There are a lot of people out there who are really good at it. Like, for example, Fiona Hunter at Kids Club English, she's totally nailed her marketing strategy. She goes on and she, like, whenever she posts something new on Teachers Pay Teachers, she talks people through what the resource is, etc. And I think I need to be more Fiona Hunter. I'm not. I'm quite haphazard. And I think actually I'm realizing over time that I like creating content. I don't like marketing it. So yeah, I think if teachers do want to do lots of different things, think about what they enjoy doing.
What are the
ages marketing?
What are the things that you recommend if someone is thinking about doing it? Then what are the basics of marketing that you think a teacher should know about? Where do they start? Do they set up a website? Do they have social media presence? Do they post on LinkedIn? What kind of?
I would have at least one place that you're findable. Like, and I would say LinkedIn's probably the easiest. And I would also say if you're on LinkedIn and you don't have a photograph on it, that just says to me that you're not really on LinkedIn, that you've created a profile and that you don't use it. So like when I search for someone online and they're like, for example, we've taken quite a lot of sketch notes of people who've delivered teacher training. And then every time they go around in a social media queue, so it's all automated, they reappear every 3 months or so. And then when they do, I go back into that post and tag them because my auto scheduler doesn't tag people automatically. So I go back in and I try to tag them, but there's some people that don't have social media profiles, so I can't tag them. Or when I do tag them, it comes up with a profile that doesn't have a photo on it, and I'm like, they don't use LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Is there any point in tagging them?
I think that's true of all social media, isn't it? If someone doesn't have a photo on an account and ask to follow me or be my friend, I'm immediately kind of like, no.
Yeah.
No. Or sometimes if they have an icon, if it doesn't actually show their picture, their human, they show them as a human being. I'm like, are you just, what are you, a bot? Are you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially on LinkedIn, like definitely profile picture should be taken seriously on LinkedIn. Like you can get away with it a bit more on Instagram because I think people do think, okay, that's actually a personal account. That's not really a professional account. And then, there's actually also that awareness of like when I tag people on Instagram, I'm like, I don't really want to tag that person because they might not want to be connected with all these people professionally. So I'll go and send them a message and say, is that your personal account? Do you want that kind of attention, or shall I just leave you not and don't tag you? So
I don't know about you.
I want to cite them as
I kind of
content creators.
I struggle with knowing what to use what social media for. So LinkedIn, clearly professional, work related, education related is how I'm doing it. But things like Instagram, I kind of have used it for just personal stuff and just friends, family and things. But I've started using it professionally, but I'm kind of like thinking this is maybe not a good idea. I don't know. And then with Facebook, it's a mixture as well. I've never really found the happy medium. So I don't know if you use Blue Sky. So Blue Sky, I've set up 2 accounts for very specific, very different purposes. One definitely education related, and that I think is an interesting way to go to separate out accounts. I've resisted that with other social media, but I think it seems to be the best way to do it, certainly with that. So, that platform. I don't know what you think. Have you got separate social media accounts for personal and professional?
I did have in the past, but I do have a personal Facebook account, but the reality is that my personal Facebook account is kind of like for English language teaching, people that I know and have met at conferences and have built up friendships with over time, as well as my friends, like from friends and family. So I'm still quite squeaky clean on there. I'm kind of, but that's kind of like all over social media. I think for friends and family, WhatsApp is my place really. And then, LinkedIn's probably my favorite of all the social media platforms, partly because I get more engagement, partly because it's more sensible. And then, Instagram, not even really sure why I post on Instagram, to be honest. I just got into the habit of it.
And what about other platforms like TikTok? Have you ever thought wondered about using that?
The thing is, the more social media platforms you have, the more you spread yourself thinner. And then they've all got like different kind of, like, for example, Instagram is like portrait videos and YouTube is landscape videos. And then for years I was making sketch notes that were square. And then recently, because it looked nice in the Instagram grid, and then Instagram changed all that and it's rectangular and my Instagram grid looks rubbish. So a bit annoyed at Instagram for that after many, like I was being square specifically for them. So all of that can change. But
Definitely.
yeah.
So this term portfolio career, is that something that is talked about, or is it something that you've kind of come up with?
No, it's something that's talked about. And that's actually, for years, I just thought, oh, I've got so many different hats and I can't believe how many ridiculous plates I'm spinning, or like how many things I've got on my CV. And yeah, then someone mentioned that portfolio career. I think it's something about building a career. I think maybe what started it actually, when I started at the college, I was a temporary lecturer. I had 3 hours a week.
Right.
Sometimes I'd have 6, then I had 9, and it would snowball. But it wasn't, it was, would it have been a 0 hours contract? I mean, it was almost a 0 hours contract. It wasn't stable. It wasn't, it was, so to me, I wanted to diversify and make sure that I was always safe somewhere. And actually, even now that AI comes along, I'm like, oh, I do have many hats. That's good. Which of them is going to stand the test of time? Like, for example, yeah, like which one is going to be the most AI protected? I don't know. I kind of tend to feel like sketchnoting perhaps, because they've got tools to write blogs, they've got tools to potentially write textbooks with the right prompts, obviously.
Yeah. So you think that a lot of that kind of work will be affected by AI then?
I don't know. I'm kind of, I'm a bit concerned about it. I'm not going to lie.
I think
feel like it might be. Yeah. And even just like, for example, Duolingo has just announced that they're releasing 150 courses that have been generated by AI. Like, how can anyone compete with that?
Yeah.
And if Duolingo's done it, then other big companies are going to start doing it. And when I was learning Spanish, when I was traveling around Latin America, I used Duolingo, which was like £90 a year for a family plan. I got 6 friends on it, so it ended up at £15 each, not very much for no ads. And then I did Babbel Live classes, which worked out about £10 a class. Once you divided it up, if you do it, like, I think it was 60 or £90, I can't remember. It wasn't very much per month. And I just thought, if that's how cheaply I can learn Spanish.
Yeah. But
I mean, I'm a self-directed learner who maybe doesn't need as much support as other people. So I don't know.
The live classes were with an actual human, though, I guess.
Yeah.
And what, apart from, I mean, you did that because the kind of automatic stuff that you were learning through Duolingo wasn't enough to learn enough Spanish.
Yeah.
Right. I think it does sound like there's always going to be a need for teaching.
Yeah.
I mean, because as you've just shown, there's only so much you can learn without actually communicating with other people, especially because language that's what the main use of language is for. It's for communicating with other people and understanding people who are talking to you, etc. Do you think? I don't know. I'm being naive.
No, I think you're right. And I think you need, like, so for example, Duolingo is good for like teaching vocabulary and structures, etc. Yeah. And just if you've got 5 minutes or 3 minutes, it's possible to just quickly recap. And then Babbel's good for like the Babbel Live online classes were good for group discussions. But I think there's always a need as well for like one-to-one discussion, the reality, and meeting people from different accents as well, with different accents. And
I mean, I know that
organically. And maybe if for example, I was learning Spanish to travel, so I wasn't learning Spanish to like go and work in a company or deliver presentations, and if that was the case, I would probably have taken on a tutor. So like niche things like that, coming back to the topic of niching, and like, for example, academic English as well. If someone's studying for a PhD, they're going to need the skills for that particular area of academia and to be able to express themselves orally and in writing.
I mean,
although who knows what's happening with the writing? side of things. There was a lot of chat at IATEFL about how assessments shouldn't be writing based and should be more kind of oral, on the hoof. Not on the hoof. How would you say that without the idiom? Like at the time in the moment.
Yeah. I think what I was going to say is there is this idea of now you can use tools such as ChatGPT as conversational partners because you speak to them, they can speak to you, stuff. But it's still, I don't know if that will change, but it still feels like that's an additional practice thing.
Yeah.
That you can do. Maybe that will change in the future and people will be able to just learn enough of a language through doing it. And then with writing, what I think is really interesting with writing is that there's a lot of talk now of kind of hybrid writing is where we should be thinking. There's a lot of I've read quite a few posts about this idea of people are going to use AI to help them with writing. But what so let's not just ignore it and think that it's not going to happen, because that is what's going to happen.
Yeah, already happening.
This idea of human intervention, the human should always be present. You know, if you use AI to write, then you should always look at it critically, you know, check it factually, but also revise it so it sounds like you and not some kind of generic machine writing. Because there's
use it for inspiration, not to do your work for you.
Yeah, or use it to draft. So the idea of if you're a teacher and you want to use AI to write, you know, you can write me a draft template for parents, but then you need to take it and make it your own and stuff. Write me a report for this. The kind of generic kind of writing reports, letter formats, email formats, and of things that are pretty standard. I think AI can save a lot of time, but other things I'm not so sure about. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it'd be quite complex to write an entire course book with AI, and especially if you're going for authentic materials involving real people and real situations, and then you've got to cross-reference every single thing that the AI tool churns out, because it hallucinates, doesn't it? And it doesn't give entirely factual information and doesn't necessarily give all the referencing that like an editor would be checking for. So in some ways it might actually slow down the process of writing at the moment anyway, but definitely got some things that can check for.
I don't know. I think there are other tools now that are a lot more accurate. So specific tools that only reference things that you input. So you actually decide what the source material is, and it will return answers to your questions with referencing the actual documents and the parts of the documents that provide the evidence. That means it's less likely to hallucinate, although it's possible.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think we are moving to a stage where there will definitely be some publishing companies, for example, that will be trying to produce content completely using people who are prompting, because it'll be cheaper.
Yeah, of course.
Cheaper and probably quicker. And I think that's inevitable. Whether or not they continue with that depends on it. Ironically, everyone has the power, really, if you like, because if the language learners are happy to use those books and they then become bestsellers and very popular books, that seals the fate of textbook writers.
Yeah, and I guess if they're cheap, then that's often what people go for. Okay, I can afford that one. Great. I can learn for £50 or I can learn for a fiver.
It's that idea. It's that idea of that's it's what I think about. University students at the moment, high school students at the moment, if they're using AI because they want to pass exams and they think, or they want to, they think looking for the easy option to do their assignments or produce work and stuff. What a lot of them, I think, are not aware of is that they're not developing the skills they will need to be able to compete with AI through doing that in the future.
Yeah.
So if they don't have that thinking process, that skills, if they're just relying upon that, then we're going to have a generation of people who actually are inferior to AI because they don't have those cognitive skills.
That's even more concerning.
I help them now when they're just looking to do something quick. They're looking for quick fixes, I suppose.
Yeah. I love how every conversation, no matter which area that you're talking about, ever always comes back down to AI. I feel like every conversation I've had recently is just like, oh, but what if AI could just take it over?
It's not something I was, I've tried not to talk about it with guests, for example. It always ends up being touched upon because it's that I think it's so present now, and it's such a worry for a lot of people.
I think teaching should be. I reckon teaching will be safe. Teacher training. I'm a bit concerned about the writing aspect.
Yeah,
that might, and then maybe like on the course creation and stuff like that. I guess leadership and management, you still need the organization and the empathy that happens there and the human touch. And then I guess sketchnoting as well. The AI, I've asked AI and a few different tools to create a sketchnote summary and it's terrible, absolutely terrible.
You're saying
which is very good to know. It's a big relief. And I think also people like the idea that it's hand generated as well.
Yeah, it's that, isn't it? With AI illustrations or even photographs and stuff, the way I think it's clear is that if someone cannot afford to pay for someone to draw something or to illustrate something, then that is an option. For example, a teacher who needs some illustrations for class very quickly, they're not going to commission an illustrator to do that, but they can very quickly generate the images to illustrate what they want for class that's of low cost. So the temptation to do that is great. That kind of thing isn't going to take away from anybody's work because the teacher just wouldn't. The choice is I either don't have them or look for some kind of spend time looking for some free to use
or draw
drawing or draw it. That's the other case, of course. But I think there'll still be a need for then someone who wants something that is actually created by a human being that is has a kind of different feel to it or beauty to it than you're ever going to get from AI. I think maybe I'm being naive, as I said before. It's the same with writing, isn't it? I think I've seen there's a lot of interest in generating even fiction with AI. But that's ultimately, I think if that fiction is being read and enjoyed by people, then there'll be a market for it. It'll be, people will continue doing it and continue reading it. But it does seem a bit odd.
But the thing is, for non-fiction, for example, is actually one thing that I've been doing to add to my string of hats is whilst I was traveling last year, I did take a kind of, it wasn't exactly a travel journal, but I definitely did write. And it's not my usual kind of writing. Like usually I'll write grammar activities where I'm shoehorning a bit of a present perfect in there or whatever, or into a text. Or But yeah, I started doing a bit of creative writing about my reflections on travels, and I was planning on maybe turning it into a book. We'll see if that ever happens. But
It's a good idea.
I was thinking, like, actually kind of autobiographical, biographical, or like self-reflective, or things that actually happened. I guess non-fiction. That's, yeah, AI can't write that.
Well,
That has to
exactly.
come from the human. So
It's documenting your experience. It's not
exactly, yeah.
creating. One thing is to use AI to create a kind of guide to a city where the best restaurants are. And that kind of non-fiction book for travel is probably now maybe at least all of the resourcing and research is probably better done by AI. Is that AI quickly scan all of the available offers, assimilate which ones are better rated, restaurants wise, hotel wise, and then compile it and deliver it to you.
Although having said that, when I was traveling in Panama, I asked it for some tips about where to go, telling it that we liked remote beaches, etc. And so we ended up in this town that was basically just a place for like American expats to come and live for their retirement. And it was just me and my husband and a whole load of people who were getting sold real estate.
Right.
And it definitely was not the place that we were looking for at all. But I think AI had basically scanned various blog posts from basically reality sites and created this advice for me. So lesson learned.
But then I'm guessing you use generic Gen AI, so ChatGPT or whatever.
Yeah.
What I was saying before is that there are tools like Notebook LM where you actually specifically target the AI towards certain websites or documents.
Right, okay.
And it will only use that as evidence.
Okay.
So if you try it, I've not tried it.
I've not actually heard of it. So
you could say, what sources do I trust? Do I trust TripAdvisor or not? Do I trust Google Maps or not? You can actually select blogs that you think are in line with your kind of experience for travel and just put those links in.
Yeah.
And then you could then ask, once you have a number of different sources, you can ask questions, where should I visit? So if you tailor, obviously it requires more work. It's not just a 30-second prompt, but as you said, you don't want the experience. If you're spending a week or a weekend somewhere, you don't want the experience to be disappointing. So if you have the time and do it in advance, you could, of course, just check a guidebook. That might be easier. But as an experiment, when you go back, try using one of those tools and seeing if you can kind of
I will.
If that gives you a better experience.
For going back to Argentina or Chile. Although now we've got ideas for where we actually want to go when we go back. All the FOMO places, the places that we didn't get to visit.
Are you going back to Patagonia?
I'd love to. Yeah, we didn't go. We went as far south as Chile Chico at the south of almost almost at the bottom of the Carretera Austral. I'd like to continue to the bottom, head to Ushuaia, and go to Perito Moreno Glacier. We've been to Argentina twice and never made it to that humongous glacier.
Perito Moreno
is dying.
Is amazing. Calafate in Perito Moreno is amazing.
Yeah. I need to go there.
And what about Iguazu?
That was
the waterfall.
Yeah, out of this world. Incredible. So yeah, we were there and we went 2 days on the Argentinian side and once on the Brazilian side.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Okay, so Emily, I know we're running out of time and you've got other things you need to do with your time, and I'm sure they're related to juggling all the kind of
millions.
Yeah. But thank you so much for coming back on the show and for talking about this idea of portfolio careers and how teachers can kind of start diversifying and trying to kind of expand beyond teaching to do other things that may well be of interest to them. It's been really interesting to talk to you.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities out there. It's not just teaching, there's all sorts.
Not that there's anything wrong with teaching, but if you are a teacher and are interested in diversifying and adding strings to your bow, then I hope what we've been talking about today will give you some ideas of how to do that.
Yeah.
Need a smarter way to teach? Wish your lessons had more impact? Eduflix.com. Stream educational films for teachers and students in or out of the classroom. Keep students engaged. No ads, no distractions. Try it free for 30 days at eduflix.com/try. Use code TTR. Get 50% off all orders made before June 1st. Eduflix.com.
Hi secondary school teachers, we're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculums. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org.
Did you know that every year, half of disadvantaged children who are top attainers at primary school don't go on to achieve top GCSE maths results? At Axiom Maths, we exist to change that. Our fully funded programme helps schools nurture young mathematicians through weekly face-to-face maths circles, where pupils tackle challenging and exciting problems outside the national curriculum. With just under £3,000 annual funding, expert training and quality resources, we give schools everything they need to inspire the next generation of mathematical thinkers. Want to make a difference? Visit axiommaths.com today and join over 400 schools delivering math circles across the UK.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order.
So many thanks to Emily for talking to me again. I hope you found that as interesting as I did. As I mentioned, Emily was a guest on the show before in June 2024, speaking about graphic facilitation. If you're interested in listening to her speak about that, you can go to www.ttradio.org/listen back and search on her name. In fact, if you're interested in a particular area of education, of teaching, and want to listen to a show about it, just search there on the topic and you'll find it. And I'm sure there are a number of different shows with a number of different hosts and guests exploring whatever subject that you want to look for. Thanks to everyone who's joined us live online as well, especially thank you to Timothy Sharper in the chat for all your comments and questions. And I think one of the things that Timothy you said is definitely, or you asked is, you wondered how is it possible to stay consistent with so many different spinning plates, and that is a very good question. I think being well structured and having excellent time management skills is very important, but it is always going to be a challenge, I think, if you have different strings to your bow, as Emily does. So thanks for the question, Timothy. And what I'd like to do now is sum up our discussion. So if you're a teacher, a portfolio career can allow you to expand beyond the classroom while still using your expertise. And here are some examples of how a teacher might build a portfolio career. So, of course, keeping in mind, I think, that the core role that you will be doing is teaching. either part-time or full-time. That could be classroom teaching at a school or college, online tutoring via platforms or via private clients, face-to-face, private students, of course, as well, depending on where you live. Then, of course, there are potential substitute classes at academies, lecturing at a university. And then what about supplemental roles? Well, educational content creation is one that came up during our discussion. You could try to add or write textbooks or add to, study guides or worksheets. Getting into textbook writing sounds, I think, in theory difficult, but if you can show that you have the skills, there's always a demand for that type of work, for someone who can do that type of work. You can create lesson plans, sell resources on sites like Teachers Pay Teachers that was mentioned by Emily, to show that you can actually develop materials. And I think the idea is to have some kind of portfolio that shows your experience and skill at doing it before you get any other kind of offers for writing for example, a publishing company. You can develop online courses, of course, or YouTube tutorials, and that is growing to become more important all the time. Then there is freelance writing or blogging. Writing articles for education websites or magazines is an interesting thing to do. Starting an education blog focused on pedagogy, classroom management, or some kind of subject-specific area with tips is probably a good way of getting into that and showing that you can write, as well as developing your skills as you go along. Then there's assessment and exam work. You can try and do some marking for standardized tests, whatever those are. You could design test questions, test items for educational publishers or examination boards. Probably the best way to get into doing that is through developing contacts, things like going to conferences and talking to the people on the stands there might be a way of doing it if you don't have any other contacts, or it's a good way of networking, definitely. Then there's coaching and consulting. You could offer teacher training or CPD workshops for organizations or people or schools, academies, etc. Again, depending on your context. You could work with schools or other organizations to see if you can offer to improve their educational practices or look at curriculum design. Again, a lot is so much dependent on where you are and the context. There is parent or student coaching and study skills, motivation, homeschooling support. That's an area that could well be of interest to parents, especially with homeschooling becoming more popular. Then, of course, again, if you're living abroad and you have the language skills, there's translation of educational materials, there is editing, multilingual or detail-oriented. If you are multilingual or detail-oriented, these are two areas that could be of interest. You could edit academic papers or theses for people who need support. Then, of course, there is the optional, the creative or passion-based things that you do. So things that you're very interested in that you would do in your free time, for example, that you might want to explore as a way of making additional income or adding to your portfolio. It could be anything really. You could try authoring children's book or educational games or any type of writing if that's what you're interested in. It could be photography, illustration, or art related to teaching. You might not have thought about trying to apply those skills to teaching, but there may well be some kind of opening if you start looking around and thinking about what is needed by organizations, schools, academies, etc. Any other type of side business, a store, an online store with something that you have created, be it actually physical or digital. You could look at educational podcasting, etc. Now, of course, finding out about the opportunities can be difficult. Emily talked about how she got involved with the things that she does. Networking is definitely key, but what else can you do? Well, teachers can discover portfolio career opportunities through a combination of networking, professional development, online platforms, and other things, really. There's a lot you can do to look online for opportunities. So online marketplaces and platforms, they're great for freelance teaching, tutoring, or selling resources. There's tutoring sites, course creation sites, teaching material sites, freelancing opportunities through sites such as Upwork or Fiverr. Then, of course, professional networks and communities for teachers, Facebook, LinkedIn groups for educators. There are so many of them, and some of them are definitely used a lot by freelancers or others who are looking for opportunities. Subject-specific communities, if there is a particular area of education that you have developed a skill or knowledge or expertise in, I don't know, be it aspects of teaching English or STEM or all sorts of things, really, special education. Then there are communities of practice, local or online groups that can be focused on teacher development. If you add to those, if you post things, for example, if it's online, then you may well develop a reputation for being someone with a lot of experience and knowledge, and could receive offers for through that as well. Alumni networks from teacher training programs, etc., could well be a way of contacting people and having access to opportunities. Then, of course, there are resources for schools, etc. You may well be working for a school, an academy, etc., and see that there's a need, or educational publishers that way you could offer them advice or help with all sorts of things, really, including curriculum writing, if that's appropriate. There are exam board connections, as I said before, which you can make. You can perhaps get into that through invigilating or doing oral exams, etc. If you're an English teacher, or all sorts of things, really. There are education-focused job boards. There are newspapers, newsletters, websites for freelance, part-time, and remote roles that are always posting. CPD and conferences, I think, is a really interesting way, especially as you can have an opportunity to go and talk to a lot of people on the stands. So at the education conferences that are face-to-face rather than webinars, there's a lot more opportunity, I think, to actually go around the stands that are often at these events and talk to the publishers, talk to the universities, edtech startups, or any other organizations. Introduce yourself, show an interest, and ask about opportunities. I'm sure they'll be interested in talking to you. A lot of these people, I see them when I go to conferences, they're just standing around actually without people to talk to much of the time. So especially outside of the coffee break. So that's a good way of making connections, networking, and starting to talk. And the more that you can listen to them and hear about what their organization is and what their needs are, or what kind of things they offer, then the more that you can try to spot opportunities. Then, of course, there's creating opportunities yourself. You can start a blog or a YouTube channel. You can showcase your expertise, offer workshops locally or online, approach schools or other organizations directly with proposals. So I hope this has been of interest, and you can find out if you are able to take advantage of any of these for your own opportunities to build a portfolio career, if that is what you're interested in doing. And I presume if you're still listening to this, then you are. So good luck with that. So I'd like to finish today by talking a little bit about Teachers Talk Radio. From what I can tell, this show of mine is the 109th show that I've done for Teachers Talk Radio. I started in February 2022, so more than 3 years ago. How time flies, eh? That's also around 123 hours of shows, I think, which both sounds to me like a lot and not very much. I have really enjoyed hosting the show, and I'm enjoying hosting the show. It's a great thing to belong to such a supportive community of teachers. And for me, the main reason why I do it is for my own CPD. Being a show host for Teacher Talk Radio gives me a great opportunity to reach out to teachers and other educators and talk to them for an extended time, an hour or so, about an aspect of their work or aspects of their work that they're passionate about. So outside of this, I rarely, if ever, get the opportunity to talk extensively about a particular aspect of education. Everyone is so busy. I think it's a great thing for teachers to do, to take time to reflect by coming on the show as well. And I hope it is for you listeners too, to listen to another teacher talking about their work can spark an interest in following up on something that may be something that you particularly want to know about, etc. Or could be just informative to hear about what other teachers around the world are doing. I know it is for me. So, listeners, I presume if you've made it this far into the show, you might be interested in coming on the show as a guest on my show or one of the other shows on Teachers Talk Radio. Or perhaps you might even be thinking about becoming a host of your own show. Teachers Talk Radio would love to hear from you. So first of all, I think you would need to go to www.ttradio.org, and there you can find 2 contact forms. You can apply to be a guest or a host on the show if you go to those contact forms. If you're a host, then you have a lot of freedom to talk about areas of teaching that are of interest to you. We're encouraged to bring guests on the show that are actually working as teachers, of course, but otherwise there's a lot of room to bring on people that you would like to talk to, so long as, of course, they're interested and involved in teaching and education. I'd love to have more classroom teachers on the show, so if that is the case, that you're a classroom teacher and would like to come on the show and talk about the kind of teaching you do, then please get in touch. If you want to be a guest, you can get in touch through that link I said, www.ttradio.org/contact, or you can also contact me wherever you can find me online. And I'm everywhere online, so if you just poke around a little bit, you'll find me. So that's the end of today's Sunday lunch show. Many thanks to my special guest, Emily Bryson, and to all of you who joined me live or who were listening back to the recording. Thank you for joining us. I hope you will join us again next week at the same time. Bye for now.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.